my mother watching just to record the video. And yeah, I do want to hear, yes, Bobby, I've done my due diligence, so I know all about Alex and a little bit about the technology, but I do want to hear about Alex from Alex. So, Alex, can you give me who is Alex?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Australian born, 29. I was a professional tennis player. I moved to Spain when I was 15 to pursue tennis independently. So I left my family back home and I started on the circuit. And yeah, I pursued my career for around 8 years, made it to 300 in the world. I played Australian Open as a wild card in the major doubles. And yeah, I basically picked up Spanish and French along the way, which is quite fun. And by about 24, I got injured, hurt my hand, and I also got quite a bit tired as well. So decided to stop tennis. Became a coach as well at the same time, coaching everyone from fresh beginners all the way through to competition. And at the same time, I then started to study economics and international relations at the Australian National University. I also tried 10 jobs, as I was saying before. And before I joined Tennis Esports, I was an economic advisor and a strategy consultant for KPMG. And now I am the Chief of Strategy and Partnerships for VR Tennis Esports.
So, Chief of Strategy for VR Tennis Esports. What's that you're Chief of Strategy for something that's never existed before? How's that play out?
Correct. Yeah, it's a very fun job. We're plucking out of the air a little bit. No, definitely really promising. So we're in 3 different markets. We are in tennis. We're aiming to start a virtual sport, so an esports. And we are a software application primarily on the Meta Quest 2. So if you've ever seen the glasses, it's a VR headset. If I have a headset, you have a headset, we can play and meet on a virtual court and play a match. So if I hit a slice serve wide, you will receive my slice serve no matter where you are in the world. I can be in Australia and you guys can be in Atlanta and we can play a match.
That's fantastic. And so, and I've been looking through some of the comments, and you really want to avoid the trolls, of course, because I do the same thing every once in a while. We do some product reviews, and I've been looking at it, and I'll admit I do not have the magic goggles yet, so I have not had a chance to personally play with this. It would be one of those things where we'd say, hey, you know what? Bobby and I need a free set of goggles, and we need free access to everything just so we can test it. Usually there's a price point that doesn't always make that as easy as it sounds for us. We just like getting free stuff and testing products. But where are you with the physics and everything? Because I don't know how old some of the comments are. I know there's some questions on, again, it's never happened before. So this is really kind of a new thing. How does that happen when you say, okay, the physics is it getting closer and closer to a real feel like tennis?
Yep. So I guess, yeah, we pride ourselves, and we started out as a research project in collaboration with the Technical University of Vienna here. A lot of our developers are from Vienna, and we work really closely in person. What sold me on tennis esports was the fact that we are very close to simulating tennis on so I guess everything from slices to drop shots to topspin to slice serves to kick serves, that's all replicated and simulated. The difficulty is all the complications of tennis, so the movement side of things in VR, the match play in terms of different levels of players, and also graduating or transitioning people from the real world into a virtual sport, essentially. So that's kind of what we're battling with right now, is just like the user experience from 0 to 100. But the physics are there, and I've tested it out, and I'm confident it feels like tennis once you do get used to the virtual side of things. In addition, we also have a racket handle controller. So when you do have the controller on top, when you do have playing the tennis esports, you stick a controller on top, and you have a racket handle basically, and it's weighted and balanced like a tennis racket. So when you do impact the ball, it will feel like a tennis racket. You've got your 300-gram tennis racket, and the same as the swing weight as well. So when you do swing through the ball, you'll get that feeling. And the next kind of step towards that is simulating the impact. So getting that haptic feedback of, when you hit the ball, you feel it a lot more through the handle. And my next goal is to have, I guess, different feedback for when you're hitting an off shot and when you're hitting a good shot and when you're hitting a slice, when you're hitting topspin, things like that.
It reminds me of the first time, and I was never much of a video game player, but one of the Nintendo games, and it had the vibration when you get shot with something. You're playing these first person shooter games, and it vibrates a little bit to make it feel, oh no, I'm getting punched in the back of the head. But to try to be able to do that technically, the racket, can I buy one now? Are they pre-order? Where are you with the racket production?
Yep. So
Handle, sorry.
on our website, yep, it does say submit a pre-order. We are also now recently partnering with what's a company called Hello Real. They come out of the States and they produce essentially racket handles just as well as they also produce golf handles and other VR accessories. You would have seen, or you may not have seen, but Golf Plus is the equivalent of tennis esports. It's a virtual reality golf application. They are heavily backed by a lot of professional tech players from MLB, from NFL, and the NBL as well, which is interesting. But they are partnering with Callaway and I think it is Taylor, something like that. So similar to us again, but you can play on all different types of courses as well. So Hello Real produced that, and they are growing quite strongly, and they will be producing our rackets as well.
That's fantastic. We talk about that a lot, Bobby and I do, about the partnerships, and say, hey, stick with what you do well. If you're doing the VR side of it, that doesn't mean you also need to be a controller building company as well. Like,
Correct.
Find somebody who does those things. Bobby and I partner as much as we can and say, you know what, we do this, you do that. How about we just get along?
Yeah, definitely. That makes total sense. We are primarily the software, and that's our main focus, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're not doing events or anything like that. We're definitely trying to focus on making the best app possible, so it's the most enjoyable as possible.
And Bobby introduced me to this, so I get to blame him that now I'm diving into the world of VR where I potentially would not have before, and I'll admit I'm a bit of a skeptic. So Bobby, have you decided whether or not this is going to be a thing in Atlanta? If you were to predict and say, hey, GoTennis or the Atlanta Tennis Pod, what we can do to promote this and say, you know what, tennis is very unique in Atlanta. It's a very unique city. It's unique in a way that's kind of I don't want to say annoying. That's the wrong word, but there's a harshness to the uniqueness here. Like, we do it this way. Here's how we operate, and something new isn't always accepted. But do you agree that this could kind of creep its way in here?
Oh, I think I go back probably 2 years with Gregory when I first saw this and we started communicating. And I was very excited, and I saw his applications, which were, I think, first of all, you have to overcome Wii Tennis, because that's going to be everybody's first thought is, oh, well, I had Wii Tennis. This was, well, Wii Tennis killed more arms than, I can't tell it, what sport. Be careful when you're playing Wii Tennis. That racket's not weighted right. People would go out and swing way too hard, and they would get hurt. So that's number one. I think the second one is the glasses, and getting where it's a little bit more mass affordable, because we do have 80,000 people in Atlanta who play tennis. So I think it will definitely go over. I'll put my coach's hat on here, and this was what I was initially very excited about. It's a ball machine in my eyes. You can do this in your garage. It's going to get you repetitions. If it simulates the feel of the ball, and you work with your swing, and then you partner with a swing vision that gives you immediate feedback on your swing, I think it's a slam dunk. So, and something Alex just brought up, if you can simulate that you're playing Wimbledon or you're at the U.S. Open with the app and the feel like they're doing with golf courses, to say, here you're playing you're playing Augusta today. Well, here you are at the U.S. Open. Here you are at the Aussie Open. I think that would be a creative coup as well, just to get people excited and because tennis never had that. Tennis, the big difference is between golf and tennis. Obviously, in tennis, you're playing directly against a competitor. Golf, you're playing a course. So everybody wants to go play a different course in tennis. In golf. In tennis, the lines don't change. The surface might change a little bit. but the dimensions don't. So there's not that novelty. But if you throw in this and say, okay, you're center court Wimbledon today. Yeah, I do think I think we're moving in that direction. Like I said, coaching standpoint, I love it. It's the sooner we can make it affordable. That's what I've been attracted to when I first read about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, I'm glad that you hear that you're saying this, and I'm super positive and excited about it. So we're kind of coming out with two kind of main aspects and two features. So one is actually starting this virtual sport. So basically, as I was saying before, if I've got a headset, you've got a headset. If I win a lot of matches, we can start to formulate rankings. We can start to formulate different types of skills, and also really get into detail with some of these, and bridge the gap between, some of the limitations we have in training and physical training, by really going into a lot of the data that you can track. So I can simulate and replicate or track some of the number of forehands I've hit, the number of forehands I've hit in, for example, how much spin and what my average spin is. Am I improving? Am I not? So that could be one aspect of those kind of different kind of, buckets you could go into with that virtual sport. And at the same time, we're releasing what's called immersive tennis lessons. And what I really want to try and do is expand and complement the tennis world. So I'm not really just focusing on tennis players, but also beginner players, to teach people how to play tennis from scratch and from anywhere in the world, and really make it quite accessible. We can have players from all types of genders play against each other, of course, but we also have wheelchair tennis players playing at the same time, who are able to play against able-bodied players as well. So it's really, really quite inclusive. We're trying to make tennis and grow the sport at the same time. And finally, I just want to say, to add to your coaching aspect, we have a second feature, or an add-on feature, that is technical analysis. Now, basically, when I was younger, I know when I was about 10, or that period between 10 and 18, I was obsessed with technique, really trying to get it correct. We'd spend hours and hours filming myself, and then going back and watching, and then analyzing again. And a month later, or 3 months later, things had changed, and I had grown, or something had just changed. I wasn't sure why. And it would take that whole 3-hour session again to track. So with technical analysis, basically what we're doing is tracking your technique. So frame by frame, every single stroke. And we are, one, providing an AI guidance. So working with tennis federations to produce coaching rules, where it can help you either prevent injury, it can help you learn topspin, it can help you either even simulate the pros. So we could try to get that data involved. And secondly, what we can do is essentially teach people how to play tennis, and you can also track that. So imagine if you, a month ago, wanted to see what was happening with your technique, and if you were doing something different, you can then keep that data within your profile and learn how to either simulate it or take the best of what you were doing before. So it's pretty fun.
And that lends me to two questions then. You're gonna do stroke analysis, which goes to Bobby's question of, hey, have you talked to Swing Vision? Because if Swing Vision's gonna do stroke analysis, you don't need Swing Vision for stroke analysis. Now, not everybody does just one thing, but in that case, they might end up being a competitor, which would be a different conversation, meaning how do you stack up from a stroke analysis point of view to someone like Swing Vision, who's been doing it for a while? But also it leads me to the I'm a tennis coach question, and are you trying to put me out of business with your fancy online tennis coaching?
Correct. Yeah. So twofold there. One, with Swing Vision, I don't see much of a competition. I think we're a different product. Could be complementary again, as we are in VR. So you're literally immersed in this kind of aspect, and you're watching yourself tracking animated objects to do the correct movements. So in a way, it's actually complementary to the work Swing Vision have already done now. Secondly, with the coaching aspect, again, I really want to emphasize that we're looking beyond the tennis market. I know Atlanta, Georgia particularly have a huge population for esports and esports players, and that if you look into it, is growing very, very fast. The viewership for the US Open final, for example, had the same amount of viewers for the one game of esports, which is called League of Legends, and that was the grand final for that year as well. So 7 million online and offline for both kind of events. They're at similar levels. For the coaches and for those players, our lessons kind of fast track that movement from complete beginner all the way through to, you know, speeding you up to get to your, I guess, level that you're coachable, where you're really making an impact. And second, again, we're really not targeting any kind of, we know it's virtual, right? We know it's a virtual sport. We're really not targeting to replace anything. Nothing can really replace an on-court experience, but we are trying to get people to, one, use that stroke analysis is more like a professional thing, but two, those beginner lessons are really just to bridge the gap between I've never played tennis before and I just want to get ready to be out on the court, so it's not daunting, and it's quite fun to play and learn, to get from 0 to at least, you know, 10% of learning how to play tennis.
And Bobby, would you agree? I made a comment the other day, Alex. One of the things we do with Tennis for Children is we have what we call an off-court workout. So it rained yesterday in Atlanta, so we were rained out, and we go online and we go on a Zoom call and we set up our space and we do some physical activity in the kids' home, meaning every kid's at their own home, and we do some physical workout, get them, and they're all beginners, so they're all floppy and weak and can't do a plank. And at the end, we always do a little bit of tennis logistics. And one of the comments I made, and Bobby's on board with most of how we do this, but I'm curious to ask him if you can help with this concept. The comment I made, Bobby, was, I believe you can learn tennis scoring faster by watching tennis than you can by playing tennis, because there's so much going on when you're out there. You're trying to figure out how to hit a forehand. You're distracted by the butterflies. You see an airplane, and these are usually kids, right? So can you help with, and that's actually why I liked the Wii tennis a little bit, because it did just kind of walk you through the scoring and it gave you no choice to get it wrong. Do you agree with that, with my comment there, Bobby, that it's easier to learn scoring in a virtual setting or a digital setting than it is on a tennis court?
I think it's a great introductory feature. It takes the trepidation out. You're not comparing yourself to somebody else right away. I'm a huge fan across the board of watching. I always say the biggest problem for an adult is that they're not going to sit and watch as much tennis as we had to as kids, because we would finish a match and we were at a tournament, so we're going to hang out, so we're going to go watch more. Or you're at the club and you can get on the court again in a half an hour, so you have to watch tennis. That was part of growing up playing junior tennis, was watching, where today, especially as an adult, the adult plays and leaves. So they lose out on so much of the ability to watch and just learn. As a coach, I always said, look, I teach balance. I'm going to teach you how to stand up. How did I learn how to hit the little roll forehand? Well, that was Mike Mayer when I was 14, said, hey, do this. It wasn't a coach. It was somebody I played with and said, give it a shot. And I like I said, I love all these things. I think back in the day when I first met Gregory, I was thinking about using this as kind of like a ball machine, saying, I was right around COVID, I think it was with our first phone call, where I would buy a set of glasses and have people the ability at the club play under, make a club account type thing, like a ball machine, and join the virtual reality tennis club. Come get your glasses, and this way, the club will have glasses, and everybody who pays in to buy in would have access to the service. So like I said, I think it got set back by COVID, but I still think we're heading in that direction. And anything visual, I'm a big fan of, because I think it expedites learning.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. I think as well, with our application, it's not fully fledged yet, and it's really open to, we're a startup, right? So we're still building, and it is really open to collaboration and those kinds of inputs as well. We are really trying to think about, one, that aspect of making tennis a bit more gamified, that learning process. We know, my perspective from a third party as well, looking in, we've got paddle, which we're competing with quite a lot, and pickleball, which is growing quite a lot as well. And tennis doesn't seem to be taking too much of that steam. It's for me, the mother of the racket sports. But again, we are losing exposure to all these new sports that are quite a lot more social. They perhaps aren't as quite as entertaining to watch, but we are kind of losing players to those, and we really have to think about how that's going to work, particularly with new tennis courts that probably aren't going to be built because they're a lot bigger than paddle and they're a lot bigger than racquetball, pickleball. Sorry. So on a long term, this is how, I guess, especially for VR in my industry, we have to think a decade ahead right now. And for me to do that is to think of, okay, well, why are all our teenagers perhaps going to play team sports or going to play games instead and doing other things? Well, perhaps because, one, it's very hard and expensive to play tennis right now. Two, it's not quite as social. And three, it's quite difficult to make a living out of it as well. So we really have to think about, on the grand scheme, what's the opportunity cost here? What are the alternatives to doing tennis, and not just expecting of that constant flow of tennis in the game? And I think teaching beginners that and making that easier would be a thing. So yeah, I totally agree with teaching people how to play tennis within, by watching or learning the scores as well.
And you say we are struggling against these other sports. What's your target market? You guys you're based in Vienna, and we're obviously U.S. focused, right? When we say us, we think of the U.S. or maybe even sometimes just Atlanta. But your target market, and I know it's a virtual thing, so it's everybody. Everybody in the universe can play. But are you targeting Europe as it's more of a European adoption? Are you hitting the U.S. in the same way? Where do you think you're targeting right now that makes the most sense? Because I don't think we're struggling against paddle, as example, in Atlanta, but we definitely are struggling against pickleball.
Yeah. So sorry to say that paddle is way bigger in Europe than it is in the US. Pickleball for sure is growing very, very strongly, and it's got some strong investment. Our main focus actually is VR owners. So the primary target market for us is people that own VR headsets, and secondly, trying to facilitate people to own and buy VR headsets. So that's one aspect of it. The target market, again, is definitely the US. The majority of VR ownership is in the US. And so that's why we're headed there. We are partnering with Wilson. We are going to be at the US Open, hosting hopefully a virtual US Open. And yeah, our main focus is essentially that teenage range between what is essentially legal with VR, which is 13. We've had a lot younger try it, but just not for long periods of time, and all the way through. So we have players at the moment up to about 50 years old, because it's no impact tennis, right? So it's quite comfortable. They can chuck it on, and it's 30 minutes. There's no travel time or anything like that. So the more compelling we can make it, the better.
So again, than a clay court.
Don't say anything about the old age, Sean. I know you're sitting there laughing. I'm ready for this. Come on, give it to me. Give it to me. I know I'm the old man here. Give it to me.
Never, Bobby. We're saving up for your VR headset. We're all going to chip in.
Listen, this is not gray. This is bleach from my toothpaste that comes down on my chin, and it used to be black, but it's all because I brush my teeth so often. That's why it's gray now.
Well, in that case, you get the senior discount here. Do you have anything more for Alex before I ask her the King of Tennis question?
Oh my God, two burning questions. One, and I don't do due diligence because I want to be the person who is like asking questions raw. How much space do you need? I mean, because I know it's just swinging, but if we're going to play a tournament, I can't imagine, loading, transferring weight, love it all. Like I said, stroke production, but I'm going to run. So how do I not run? I need more than a garage. How much space do I need?
I saw a comment that you actually might need a full tennis court.
So it's too far. Yeah, so that's definitely a troll right there.
Okay.
So we have two modes, right? One is kind of stationary, where you really just need your arm width. So in meters, it's 2.5 meters. In feet, it's like I'm not 6 foot, but around that 5'4", I would say. 5'4" by 5'4", and that's all you need. You don't need to move anywhere, and that's our job, right? To keep people safe while they're in VR. So we do kind of formulate the coding so you don't have that incentive to run for the ball or get it and run into your sofa or into your TV. Secondly, we have like what's more of a running mode, where you would take maybe half a squash court, maybe a paddle size, one size of a paddle court, and you could definitely run around the court basically. And that's more where the virtual sport comes in. It's quite active. So yeah.
And that'd be great for a club that already has like a ball machine court. They already have half the court dedicated. So here would be something in addition to ball machine, we can play a virtual match. So that would be awesome as well.
Yeah. So
okay,
inside the application, yeah. Sorry.
No. My next question, of course, has to deal with anything startup. And this is my fear because I've been involved in a lot of tennis-based startups, and we're big fans of technology. And I completely agree that this is something where tennis fails miserably in seeing 10 years in front. We're really good at looking 10 years behind and then asking, why isn't it like that? Well, we didn't know it was going to be like that when it was happening. You know, in this country, especially in America, I would say we've never really done a great job marketing the sport. We market the player. Where golf markets golf, you get a Tiger Woods or a Jack Nicklaus, the level of interest grows because of the personality attached to a game that's already familiar. As a coach, as a player, and I played all sports, and I did play team sports. Tennis to me is probably one of the two most athletic sports in the world right now being played. And the players and the people don't understand, and it's because they don't get the exposure to the game. They were always exposed to the player, and they we do it backwards here, unfortunately. And I look at something like this and saying, wow, this is going to be a great introduction to kids, because kids would gravitate to it more, get over that initial fear of, oh, I've never played before. Well, hey, Einstein said you do something 20 minutes a day, you get very proficient at it. Go, lock yourself in a garage for a year, and you'll probably be a lot better off than you would have been if you were taking lessons, and then go out and try to raise your game. And hopefully the technology will be further along where we can get under 13 years old and, not mess up somebody's brain. So that is exciting to me. But from a business standpoint, the fear, you're a startup. You said the magic word. Are we going to see now? Like I said, we started this conversation 3 years ago with Gregory, so that's good. Are we going to see you guys in 3 years? How are we making money? How are we going to see you in 3 years?
Yeah, so definitely. So at the moment, what I was saying before, we primarily do brand activations, and we partner with companies essentially to have their branding inside the application. So in the first instance, before we can start to become a fully fledged application on the App Store, this is how we've been essentially doing it, providing a service. We launch on the App Store officially. So think like a mobile phone, you have your iPhone App Store. The same thing, we need to go through a rigorous process through Meta to make sure that we fit the standard. And that takes time. There's a lot of backlog there. So when we do launch, which is around June, we will essentially be like open for business more so than anything else. And through that, we'll be taking downloads. So it's fee for download. At the moment, it's discounted while we're on the App Lab. So you can find us on I'm assuming there's show notes and stuff like that I can send you. And so that would be one aspect. And inside the application, you'll have different kinds of features. So you'll be able to earn points and spend your digital tokens for different types of products, like different rackets, different skins, things like that. That might not necessarily mean money, but that will be in-app purchases and different types of activations as well. And finally, we'll have a separate add-on. So you'll be able to do, say, masterclasses where Federer essentially teaches you how to play tennis. You'll be able to do cardio tennis, for example, and also perhaps you'll be able to do things like, I guess, the stroke analysis. Excuse me.
And so I love that. So we get, like, Bobby's question is, okay, how do you make money? It's like, well, we have sponsors and partners like everybody else. And I picture a big GoTennis, in the stadium. When we were first doing branding, we were looking at, like, what does our branding look like at the US Open? And we put it up there and we're like, oh, it looks really good, right? Because we get all excited thinking we're awesome. And so you're looking at that, like, I saw an interview with Sam Querrey the other day, and he's jumping into pickleball. He's going to go beat everybody in pickleball, which I just think is unfair. But if you get a guy like that, you get somebody that comes in and says, "Hey, are we going to have an esports professional league?" Because they're professional video game players. That's not my thing,
Correct.
but
Yep.
there's a thing, right? So you end up with these tournaments, and you end up with professional players. And I know Bobby's going to want to have some crypto conversation and try to find out if you guys are.
She's already getting a token. She already did it. I mean, come on. She's already
That's
said
coming
it. She said it
next.
out loud.
We're gonna have the tennis esports coin, which is fine. And but
I see an NFT. I do.
exactly. But you end up with a full-on league. You end up with professional events, and you can sell that way. But you're saying you're not actually, because I saw the download. I can spend what, $30 and download the app or something on the App Store. But that's not an official thing yet, because you said launching in June-ish. Explain that. What's the difference?
Yeah, so at the moment, if you do search for us on the Oculus App Store, you won't necessarily find us. You'll have to know about us to find us. We're on what's called the App Lab. So it's essentially, we're almost there. We're almost on the supermarket shelf. But basically we're in the I guess in the store or in the storage area. So they need to make sure that we are ticking all the boxes to move on to the platform, basically, and to be available. You can still purchase us in the storage area of the app, what's called the App Lab, but you just need to find us. So that's the only difference between being on the store or not, but it does differentiate your exposure to the market, essentially, to the VR market right now. And again, so just to clarify, we're taking downloads. Obviously, you can pay to download us. We are starting a virtual sport. So to be very clear, we will be having, virtual events inside the application, and those finals will actually be culminating in person. So whoever makes the final or qualifies for the final rounds, the kind of vision is to have these final events at tennis events, either at US Open events like Grand Slams, or to have essentially a whole new VR arena where the finalists are coming in to play in person, and they have an actual event and a physical in-person party. So that's the way esports functions at the moment, and we're moving towards that. We're trying to take the best of both, essentially.
Bobby, that's going to be terrifying. You and I are in our basement. We're playing e-tennis, and we're having a great time against each other, and we make the finals. Now we got to go in person to New York in front of millions of people. And now we got to play each other in an esport thing that we're used to doing in the privacy of our own home. Is that what you're telling me, Alex?
100%. Yeah, you might have
that's scary.
But I'm just saying.
we don't all have the personality for that.
I love it. You'll do it in a nice boardroom in a nice convention center, nice and easy on the knees again. I'm on carpet. Yeah. It's easy.
Exactly right. You don't have to, it's cold outside. You might not want to go out or venture out. You can just play virtually and, switch between rackets, choose your own racket, choose your own ball, play anywhere in the world. With the possibilities are relatively endless. And once we get the physics down pat and those kind of user experience things, then honestly, the sky's the limit. And yeah, we've already had matches in the sky before, so it's kind of cool.
Could you, you might be already there from what you just said, potentially use this as a platform to demo rackets? You've built it to the specs.
Yeah. So obviously we're in close partnership with Wilson, and that's essentially half of their job is testing new rackets, testing new designs. And I think there's a lot of possibility with the VR racket handle, as well as just showcasing the actual feeling of the racket and trying to differentiate that. That's definitely an aspect. Again, we have to make sure as a startup we are bringing value enough that people don't even, they really want to pay for something that's interesting. And so we're trying to scope which we should do first, essentially. There's a lot of ideas, and people are very enthusiastic once they try it. We had, 90-minute wait lines at our last US Open, and people just coming back. So again, it's just about trying to make sure that we're doing the priorities right and fulfilling that list as well of wish lists.
Well, we need you to come to Atlanta. Forget about the tournament. If you can come down to Atlanta, we have a major airport, obviously. We'll get you the U.S. Open on time. Heck, I'll let you stay with my relatives in New York. But I think we would be able to line it up just with the players of interest. I don't even think we have to do it. No, well, it's not even Eddie anymore, so I'm not even getting Eddie angry at me. Good. I think there'd be an unbelievable amount of interest that we could do in any subdivision, any big subdivision, any club in Atlanta. I think you'd have those kind of weights if you did this properly. So this is exciting. I'm glad after 3 years we're closer. This is, I've been
Yeah,
patient. I'm not usually very
don't worry.
patient.
Yeah, me too. Open to all those conversations. So yeah, look forward to speaking to you offline as well.
Fantastic. All right, Sean, go. She answered my business and my tennis question. I'm done.
We knew she'd be able to handle it. So my favorite question, Alex, and I'm curious from a tennis point of view, but also within the business that you're working on. If you want to stay within that, that's fine. Or if you want to zoom out from your own personal point of view, if you were king, or in your case, potentially queen of tennis, of whether it's the world or Europe, Australia, the U.S., whatever your point of view is, whatever your vantage point, if you were king of tennis, is there something you would change or something you would potentially try to make better?
Yeah, it's a good question. I really like this one. So I think I would do kind of threefold. One is from my experience trying to make it. So to explain a little bit, being 300 of the world is hard. You really have to make an investment to move up to either make money, but you can't stay there for a long period of time because you're basically burning cash, and that's not really, nothing is coming in. So if I was to change one thing, it would be I would change the economics of tennis, and more so, I'm sure that it's looked into it before, but I would essentially bring in what's called like a fantasy tennis, where the top players are either paired or teamed with the bottom players, and we'd have like something where it's a bit more of a less zero sum, more of an everyone wins kind of situation, and we can grow the sport eventually. At the end of the day, the main thing is more people making money out of tennis, the more depth that we have, similar to football. So that would be one aspect. Secondly, I think, as Bobby pointed out, tennis probably, it could be a little bit more entertaining, that we could mainly focus on not necessarily just the players and that perspective, but more showcasing the actual game and how difficult it is. So leading on to that, I think, we need to think about our marketing strategy a little bit better. And finally, I think, off of that tangent, I'd love to see, from my tennis esports hat perspective, tennis in 10 years, the events seem to be the same, and they seem to be formulated the same. They seem to be a similar thing. You're coming to the event, you're watching tennis, and you're going home. I would love to see something change, bring in some innovation, some kind of way that we can, streamline your experience. Like it's a lot more engaging, and a lot more closer to the actual players. You're either, closer to the players or closer to the game, or really understanding what's going on, but it's an actual feature that you really look forward to when tennis comes your way, and something that, you want to go home and play, not you're separated from the game and it's just an entertainment piece. So yeah, that would be my kind of two or three things. Yeah.
Well done. I would, of all that, I'm sure Bobby's brain's running through. It's like, oh, I got 9 ideas I'd like to add to that. I got to do the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure I write this down, because Bobby and I get on the phone later. I'm like, yeah, remember those 9 ideas? We need to talk to her about that. But I think of combining your third idea with your first idea. Is it possible to take the players that don't qualify, or the 300 in the world kind of players, and make them immersive in the event still, where they're out playing the esports version with the fans? Or there's another way to create something for, like you said, create that depth of the event to where there's potentially financial investment in the idea of helping those, I say lower level, that's probably the wrong term, but lower ranked players be able to afford to continue fighting the good fight, so to speak.
Yeah, essentially, it's interesting that you say that. I've looked into trying to, what the best part of we're creating a virtual sport, right? So what's the best aspects of all sports? And the most growing thing at the moment seems to be something like a team thing, or something like emerging and bringing the players who actually want to watch, and vice versa, and really, really bridging that aspect. So it's a bit of a nuance, but yeah, I mean, there's plenty of possibilities to make sense. That makes sense. However, just hasn't had the financial backing. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Changing the rules, maybe, I'm not sure, but I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I would love to say as well, like more one-handed backhands would just be more fun. So yeah.
Yep.
But,
Heck yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. We are, we love these conversations, and then everybody. We've got a great response from the King of Tennis question a lot. It was like, oh yeah, you sent me that question last week. I've been thinking about it nonstop, just trying to come up with something good. So it's a great way to end, because it's often something, and we pushed in the beginning, Bobby, if you remember, a couple of those questions were, yeah, we need to make tennis more accessible, and we need to make it more affordable, and it's bringing up the same problems that we often have. Ha, that's good. We got somebody in the back actually playing it. I like that. Bringing up the same problems rather than coming with a solution and saying, okay, well, maybe here's a solution. But sometimes we get these, hey, here's what I do as a king of tennis, and maybe there is a solution that we can find. So Alex, I really appreciate you making time, and that's fantastic. And on the video, we can see in the back somebody actually playing with the VR set. That's fantastic. But we will stay in touch. We will definitely we'll follow up for sure, because we got to figure out how to get you to Atlanta and figure out how tennis esports fits in with the culture here, because that's one of the things the Atlanta Tennis Podcast does, is try to find people like you, businesses like you, especially the startups, because you're much more 10 years down the road minded rather than just staying in business minded, and we really appreciate that. So Bobby, thank you for making time.
Alex, thank you. I always look at these things. How excited would I be for the next one? Just, to get you back, because, little things that you said, and I'm terribly, terribly impressed by you. Thank you. I think you have a wonderful future ahead of you. I hope Gregory's paying you well, because if some of the governing bodies of tennis heard you speak, I'd be making a phone call to you very soon to see what where your future lies. But I like what you guys are doing. I hope we can help you on the journey. And yeah, like Sean says, let's get you here and get you in front of some people, and let's continue the conversation, because I love, and I think it, like Sean identified, it's easy to identify what's not going right. And unfortunately, I think it all leads back to the institutional problems with tennis. You brought up a great point, and I've had friends about just the difficult journey it is to become a pro. And people don't realize, they see Novak with Team Novak, but number 100 doesn't have a team. And number 100, I had a friend who played on tour, and probably right around the age that you said you got burned out, which made me laugh. And I said, Tom, why'd you leave? He goes, Bobby, I can't even tell you. I was in some Far East country eating a $14 Big Mac. And this is a long time ago. So it wasn't even like, where we're talking inflation. He said, when I can go back to my home in Pittsburgh and be a tennis director and make six figures, and here I am eating a $14 Big Mac, trying to earn a point to get into a main draw so I can maybe make some money. And people don't realize it. People just see the big $1 million winner's check and realize, as you said, and again, I love the subtlety of it. A football, even in American football and European, there's 2,500 people getting paid. There's 30 teams with 55 people at least on the roster. Tennis, and those people are all making money. Tennis, maybe 100, 150 people making money, and I think I'm high there probably. It's a different world, and people don't get it, and that's part of that needs to come to light, the difficulty of the journey when you make this choice. So I loved it.
Sorry, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. It was such a nice to meet you both, and love what you're doing as well. So it takes these kinds of things to kind of make change as well. So I really, really think that keep going and keep asking those questions, and hopefully we can make something a reality out of this.
Fantastic. We look forward to meeting you in person soon.
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Guys, have a good one. Bye.
Oh yeah, if I'm the USTI, I'm calling her tomorrow.
Competence is good, right?
A former player with a really good, subtle understanding of other